Good evening. This is the Devar Torah and Parshas KiThisa. This is the Parsha, which very famous one. It first deals with certain conditions of building a Mishkan. It then goes on to one of the two greatest sins the Jewish people ever did, which was building a golden calf and worshiping it. What I'd like to do in this Devar Torah is do a few things. Explain the connection between this and Parshas Paro, which is one of the four special Parshas we read from the period just before Purim until shortly before Pesach, the proclamation of the new moon of Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The second thing I would like to do is show the comparison between them, and then explain what it means in the context of the time of year we are in the Jewish calendar and what it implies for current events. In any event, the sin of the Egel Zahav, golden calf, raises a lot of questions. We saw miracle after miracle. We were raised 50 levels purity, 29 levels in purity. The 50th day we received the Torah. How is it that so soon after that we could commit the sin of the Egel Zahav? Now, on a Pasha basic level, we're saying that, well, they didn't see Moshe, so they were worried, where was he? Because how did that mistake occur? They counted 49 days, but instead of counting from the next day to the complete day, they counted from the day when he went up in the afternoon, which led to the events of the golden calf, where they pressured Aaron into trying to build a calf. He actually just threw the gold in, and through impure means, they managed to create a calf. Now, that being the case, what did the worship of the golden calf look like? According to Yor Chaim HaKodesh, what it is dealing with, it is dealing with the finding an intermediary for God, because they figured Moshe was an intermediary in good Egyptian idol worshiping style. They decided they needed when Moshe wasn't around, they needed a substitute. So what did they try hooking into? They tried hooking into the calf, now the para. Now, in the vision of Yeheskel, the chariot, the throne of God is supported by four angels which have multiple faces. One of those is the face of the cow, which represented strict justice. The color red represented strict justice. So they thought that would save them and protect them. Of course, they were totally mistaken. And because of that sin, Hashem was ready to destroy him. It was only through great effort by Moshe and dealing with the name of topic of kavod, of honor, did he get forgiveness. Now, what is the connection between that and the Para Adama? To explain the Para Adama, it is one of the most mysterious mitzvahs of the Torah. What it does is, it says one has to take a pure calf, completely red, that's never been worked, and one of the Kohanim, not the high priest, but one of his assistants, goes outside the camp, burns the ashes, puts certain other things into it, burns the ashes, which is then put in water. And when somebody is exposed to death, which is the highest form of spiritual impurity, they're sprinkled with water. Now, on one level, one could simply say, well, we did a sin with the calf, so we got to do a mitzvah with the calf. But there's greater significance in this because also it has another aspect. It renders those who were exposed to death, tumas mate, that purifies them. However, the people creating this ashes of this red heifer, paradama, become impure. And that's a paradox which the nations have challenges. How can you follow such a commandment which seems to contradict itself? Now, regarding that aspect, it can be explained as follows. When the Kohen goes in to deal with the golden calf, with the eagle, the paradama, it's on a deeper level. He's trying to release sparks of Kedusha or purity were trapped in the impure forces, what we call the klipot, and then became, in doing so, he becomes impure. However, what does it do on the other hand? It allows us to soar. It allows us to go up like an eagle. Now, what is the symbolizing of the eagle? There's many explanations, but first of all, the eagle in that same vision of Yehezkel was the angels, Chayot, the angels that were there in that vision. And once we get rid of that sin, we can soar like eagles. We can get to that level. Now, if you look at it closer, it says, why this symbolization of the eagle? Because it says in chapter 19 of Shmos, Pasuk 4, was talking about the liberation from Egypt. At the time we're going to get the Matan Torah, it says, Atem re'iti asher yisita tzraim esher atkem al kanfei nesharim va abba va etchem alai. You saw what I did in Egypt, carrying you on eagle's wings and bringing you to me. Now, the symbolic of the eagle's wings is spiritual freedom and spiritual liberation. And the Paradama does the same thing, because what did we do? It's a counteract, it purifies and helps remove the sin of the Egel Zahav, which we carry with us, unfortunately, throughout our generations. In fact, the punishment for every generation a little extra is added, because if we received full punishment at the time, the Jewish people couldn't have survived. Now, that's on another level. Now, the Para Adama has tie-ins also to the Messianic era. As has been brought out, there have so far been 9 Para Adamas throughout our history. The 10th one will be at the time of Zman Mashiach, the Messiah, when we need to be purified so we can go to the temple. There are reports that there's a number of red heifers that qualify for that, and so it can complete the process. The red heifer, again, has to be completely red, because that represents Gvura, anger. As we burn the ashes and get sprinkled, we're redeemed, and we need that ultimate redemption before Mashiach can come. Now, looking at it in the time, so that explains the Paradama. Now, why this time of year? Because one looks at the process of this time of year, we're in a very insignificant period right now that started on Tu B'Shvat. From there, 40 days were counted. We get to the 25th of Adar, which is the first day of creation. What is the 6th day of creation? The equivalent of Rosh Hashanah and Tishrei is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, what are we being judged for then? We're being judged on spiritual matters, not physical matters. How much money we're going to get, what our livelihood, all of those other practical material things on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Now we're getting the other. Now, the Para Adama is in telling us that we need to purify ourselves from the sins, not just the one of touching the dead. Now, if we do that, we're going to have a purification of judgment. However, there's another deeper level here. In the sin of the Egel Zahav, what did it undo? And to go to this, we have to go back to the Exodus from Egypt, which we're going to be reading about on Seder night. We were liberated when it says we saw the eagle carried us. Hashem took us, even with 49 levels of impurity, flew us up. Now, on the deeper level, what had happened? It says that we had to leave when we did Egypt one more day, and it would have been too late. Now, it's often discussed that that means we would have said either the 49th level, part 2 of impurity, or the 50th couldn't be redeemed. Actually, as the Leshem brings, Rav Shlomo Eliashiv, he said something different, that we weren't the ones that had to be protected, it was the Egyptians, because to destroy the Egyptian power, which ultimately firstborn, all the forces of impurity, all the Yetzer Hara, the impure forces had to be destroyed. Now, those impure forces had to be destroyed, meant getting rid of most of the Yetzer Hara. If we would stayed one more day, then the Yetzer Hara would have been eliminated from Egypt and the other nations, and there would have been no free choice left, because we must have a free choice to get, in the whole world is set on that, to do good or evil. Now, that was for the nations. As for the Jewish people, Hashem carried us, and on the 50th day, when we got to Torah, we were totally purified from the sin of Adam and Chava, and we reached a level where any physical and emotional defects we have were cured. If we had stayed at that level, we that year would have gone into Eretz Israel. Eretz Canaan is known. It would have been conquered by Moshe Rabbeinu. He would have in fact been either the cause of Mashiach or Mashiach himself, and that would have been the ultimate redemption. By committing the sin of the Egel Zahav, we went back to the level of impurity beforehand, and the Yetzer Hara came back to us, something we're wrestling with even to today. And that was the grave thing that was caused. Now, that also explains another aspect of the para. And the para had to be female, because the Yetzer Hara represents the female side of the snake, which was the Yetzer Hara, either Chava or some people say Lilith before her. In any event, that had to be dealt with. And what is the Para Adama doing? Is helping us get rid of that Yetzer Hara, so that on the Rosh Chodesh Nisan we can get a good judgment. Now, it goes even deeper. Not only will we are still being helped. Now, there's other aspects. In the 30 days before Pesach, the first day, the Seder night, as the Chesed Shel Abraham brings, he was the Chida's grandfather in the Sefer, states that while we were asleep, 1/30 of our spiritual chometz is being removed from our souls, so that on the day we reach the Seder night, we are without a Yetzer Hara for one day, evil inclination, and we're therefore purified in that sense. Now, keeping that in mind, and keeping now that we're getting to the day of spiritual judgment, if we can truly purify ourselves as much as possible, become more like the Para Adama and less like the Egel Zahav, may we merit good judgment. And if we get that spiritual growth and reach our potential, hopefully this will could be the year of redemption on Pesach night. In fact, there is a B'nai Yissaschar that quotes that when this final battle happens, it will start on Purim, Shushan Purim, and will end 30 days later, which is Pesach night. May we all merit that in light of the events we have today.